Sometimes, a little lad will like to have berries and cream, but in this case, these lads are all about Yule and the mischief that comes with it. I'm Aiden Mattis, and welcome back to the Lore Lodge. When you think of the Christmas season, you're probably thinking Santa Claus, reindeer, cookies, Christmas decorations, and the like. But in Iceland things get a little different. A little kooky, you might say. You see, Iceland's always been a little bit weird. It was initially settled by Gaelic monks who maintained a part-time residency up there. Nobody's entirely certain why, we just know that the earliest historical references from the Norse peoples mention a group of Gaelic monks. But those Gaelic monks were not to always be the permanent inhabitants of the island, because around 800, people from Norway started to get interested, and Sweden and Denmark. At the time, these countries did not exist. They were just various Norse tribes and petty kingdoms who had begun to realize that, you know what? Seafaring out west is kind of fun. Now, the earliest settlement of Iceland may date to about the year 800. It doesn't seem to have been permanent if it was successful at all, but by the latter half of the 9th century, Iceland was being settled. It was gonna happen, and you know what? There was nothing that those Gaelic monks could do about it. Now, over in Greenland, a little bit later, they would have a little bit more trouble, considering that Greenland is not green. But they did successfully tame the Icelandic wilderness. In fact, Iceland used to have a lot more trees, and they cut all of them down, and now it's a very beautiful volcanic wasteland. But what really matters here, in my opinion, is that Iceland has one of the most unique government histories of all time. At certain points in time, it's been part of Norway, sometimes Denmark. It's been independent, as it is, I think it's independent today, right? Can you look that up? This is like the only thing I didn't bother to look up because I'm a medieval historian.
On the 1st of December 1918, the Act of Union and agreement with Denmark recognized Iceland as a fully sovereign state, an independent country in personal union with Denmark through a common monarch.
I was correct. It is not completely separate from Denmark. Correct. Leave all of that in. Iceland's government, however, has almost completely continuously existed since it was settled. And you might be thinking, wow, that's a long time for a parliament to exist. But it wasn't always a parliament as we recognize it today. You see, landowners and important families would gather together, often once a year, or whenever a major dispute or perhaps a war declaration came up, to gather for something called the Althing. Yes, it was called the Althing. And it was sort of like a moot where you'd gather and you'd discuss things, and then typically either spiritual or independent leaders would adjudicate. This was how you made legislative decisions as well as judicial decisions, and when it came to executive decisions, those were basically made on a family-by-family basis. So, in effect, Iceland is the only country in history to maintain an anarchist system of government for a few centuries. Now, that Althing was dissolved a few times and eventually evolved into today's Icelandic parliament, but I just think that's a really cool little tidbit about Iceland. It also has one of the most difficult languages to learn, and I will be doing my best to pronounce some Icelandic names, and I will probably fail. Now, I'm doing this mostly from my knowledge of how German is pronounced and a quick scan through a pronunciation guide for Iceland, so we'll see how this goes. To give you just a few more little tidbits before we get into the real meat of today's video, Iceland just very cool. Very cool place. Not only does it have a long, long history as part of the North Sea Empire and the Viking world, but it also may be the location of the mythical land of Thule, which was described by the Greek traveler Pytheas in the year 325 BC. So it's not certain. It also might be Norway, but he describes an island, but he also might not have realized that Norway wasn't an island. We're not totally sure. People have also suggested the Orkneys or the Faroe. Anyway, it's just cool that Iceland might be this mystical land of giants described by Pytheas. But those Vikings who settled it brought with them their own legends from the Nordic countries of Scandinavia, the nations of Sweden, Denmark, and Norway. Now, Finland, not quite Nordic, but is Scandinavian. It's complicated. But those legends include things like elves, trolls, and various kinds of fairies. And when we say the word troll, we've got to be careful about this. The word troll, especially in pertaining to Nordic folklore, has had a few different meanings. In some cases, it refers to a specific kind of being, a humanoid that is less intelligent but stronger, larger, typically very ugly. But troll has also been used as a term to refer to other human beings who simply live outside of the civilized civilized world as the Nordic cultures knew it. But as much as trolls are essential to this story, what is even more essential to the story is Yule. Now, you've probably heard the term Yule. You've probably heard of it from Harry Potter because of the Yule Ball is that Order of the Phoenix? Or is that Goblet of Fire? It's Goblet of Fire.
Yes, Goblet of Fire.
Yeah, it's Goblet of Fire. Yule originated as a Northern European, so you want to think the Nordic countries as well as the Germanic peoples, a Northern European tradition to celebrate the winter solstice. Now, pre-Christian, you were looking at a lot of celebrations of equinoxes and solstices as beginnings and endings of seasons and the lightest day and the darkest day of the year. The period lasts from December 21st to January 1st and includes celebrations that revolve around things like the Yule goat or the Yule boar, both of which date back to ancient pagan practices. Now, a lot of people do come to the incorrect conclusion, and I say this as somebody who has studied this, it was my degree. Yule and Christmas are not related. A lot of people think they are. They are not. Certain traditions, like the Yule log or Christmas trees, may have some derivation, but it seems a lot more likely that those are medieval inventions from long after the Christianization period that were simply similar to those older practices. We really have no extant examples of a practice like a Christmas tree from Germanic or Nordic paganism. Same thing with the Yule log. The Yule goat and Yule boar, however, absolutely are pagan. So, though Yule is dated to around the same period as Christmas, the two holidays are not related. There's two possibilities here. There is, of course, the historical interpretation, which is it's very likely early Christians chose the date directly after Saturnalia, a Roman holiday, so that people could celebrate and convert without having to change up too much of their traditions. But also, the original date goes back to about the 200s. I believe the first year that Christmas was celebrated on the 25th was 202 AD, and then it was officially made a holiday by the Catholic and the Orthodox Church before they split. At the time, it was just the Universal Church. It was the 5 patriarchs and all of that we have other videos on this subject. But it became an official holiday dated to the 25th of December in 336 AD. Now, why am I going into the details of Yule and Christmas? Why do those two things matter? Well, because Yule has become a colloquial term for Christmas celebrations. So, the word goes back, of course, to Old Germanic and the Old Yule term, which might actually be the same root as the word jolly, which comes to us from French. But these pagan and Christian intertwinings do persist. Because trolls are definitely a pagan concept. They're not a Christian concept. There's plenty of Christian supernatural elements out there. Trolls are not one of them. But they did get intertwined. And they got intertwined in something I'm going to refer to as the Yule family, because it doesn't have any sort of there's no surname involved here, but there's a number of characters who are all related to one another. And not the most important character, but the character responsible for all of this, Grilla, who is a troll, dates back to things like the Poetic and the Prose Edda, which are pagan. Now, in Christian times, she has become associated with Christmas. The first time that ever happened was the 17th century, and the Yule lads, her children with her husband Leplothi, were, and again, I'm trying my hardest to pronounce these, they were not all originally associated with Christmas. The lads are, but Grilla and Leplothi are not. So they have 13 children, and Grilla has over 20 children with other troll figures over the course of her mysterious story. This is going exactly where you expect it. Grilla is a cannibal. She likes to eat little children, especially the mischievous ones, because we all know that naughty kids taste better. So Grilla as a figure dates to the 12th century, the Yule lads and Grilla's connection with Christmas date to the 17th century, and then we get, for the first time, written down the names of the 13 known Yule lads in 1862. That's the year that the poet John Arneson decided to write down all of their names. He was inspired by the Grimm fairy tales, so he put together his own version of Icelandic ones. I do have to remember, before I get into the actual lads, they also have a cat, the Yule cat, but of course this is Icelandic, so the Yule cat is called, Jólakaturin, I think. And rationally, of course, the Yule cat prowls the land looking for children who did not get new clothes for Christmas. This seems to have been more of something targeting the families rather than the children themselves, and making sure that the parents got their kids new socks, otherwise the Yule cat would eat them. So basically, if you're not fashionable, the Yule cat eats you. But we all know why you're here. You're here for the lads. So we're gonna go through the lads by name, by what they do, and you're gonna watch me stumble over 13 Icelandic words. So I hope you're ready. And of course, you don't just get one day of Yule lads. No. You know, when I was growing up, being Christian and receiving Christmas gifts all in one day, I was always very jealous of the Jewish kids at school who got 8 days of presents during Hanukkah. But we should all be very jealous of the Icelandic folks, because they got 13 Yule lads. They get not 13 days of mischief. No. They get 13 days of lead up to mischief, followed by 13 more days of mischief. On December 12th, the first one shows up, but he doesn't just show up for December 12th. He also shows up for 12 more days up until Christmas, and then they start to depart. So there's one day, Christmas, where all 13 Yule lads are there to cause problems for you. And on top of all of this, the Yule lads actually used to be a lot darker. Like, the ones you're gonna hear about, they just kind of mess with you. The old ones would, like, perform acts of violence. What happened was in 1746, the Danish government outlawed the practice of using these kinds of stories to scare children into behaving. So they had to change up the Yule lads' personalities and what they did. So it's entirely possible that prior to 1746, where we don't really have any unified Yule lad lore, that they were, like, stealing and eating children, not, doing what Sheepcoat Claude, the first one, of course, who shows up on the 12th and stays until the 25th, he harasses the sheep. We don't know what he did before that, but now Sheepcoat Claude, or as the Icelandic people referred to him, Stekkjarstaur, he just hangs out and harasses your sheep. He's got little peg legs, so he's got some movement issues, and what he likes to do is sneak into the sheep pen so he can suckle the milk directly from the ewe. Not you as in you on the other side of the camera, you as in EWE, the female sheep. I hope you don't get suckled by Sheepcoat Claude, but if you do, you may be entitled to financial compensation.
I just can't get over the name. Sheepcoat Claude, or what is it again?
Stekkjarstaur.
Stekkjarstaur.
Sheepcoat Claude.
Sheepcoat Claude.
You think that one's weird? Oh, you are in for a treat, my friend, because on the 13th, we're visited by Gullygawk. And what does he do? Exactly what you'd expect. He gawks from the gully. What is a gully? It's kind of a small ravine on the side of the road. And what does it mean to gawk? You know what? Let's just look up a picture of a person gawking and put it here and see what we get. He likes to wait in the gully, and then when the farmer is away, he sneaks into the cowshed to, you guessed it, steal milk from the cows. You gotta wonder if Grilla and Lepluthi are doing an appropriate job of feeding the lads. It sounds like they're not, because the lads seem very hungry. Following the arrival of Sheepcoat Claude and Gullygawk, we get... Oh, I forgot to tell them Gullygawk's Icelandic name. Giljagar. Gullygawk. You can see how Icelandic and English have some roots in common a long time ago. But following Gullygawk's arrival, on the next day, the 14th, we get Stubby, who on the 14th is there, and he's very small, he's very short. And what does he do? Well, as we've seen with the previous two, they're hungry, so he steals your pans and then eats the crust of whatever was last cooked in them. His name is a little bit less ridiculous in Icelandic. It's Stufur. Also, by the way, just eating whatever crust is on the pan, very unsafe behavior. Don't do that. There's a reason Stubby is very small. Aiden, who do you think is next?
Probably just Yid McDowell.
You would not be far off. It's Spoonlicker. On the 15th, our buddy Spoonlicker, or in Icelandic, I'm gonna butcher this. Thorvisleikr. There's a thorn in that. The letter thorn. That has been out of English for like hundreds of years. Still in that one.
Didn't know thorn was a letter.
Thorn is a letter.
What's it look like?
Put it here. Fun fact about the letter thorn, the reason that we have things in the United States, Canada, and Britain that are labeled as ye old or something like that is because thorn, the letter, faded out of English after the Middle English period and started to be written, basically those characters were changed to a Y. The sound it makes is more of a th sound, like the. So, ye old is not, it's a weird linguistic thing that happened where it used to actually be spelled the old, just using a thorn, and it got changed to a Y, so now it's ye old. Just little details. But anyway, on the 15th of December, we get a visit from Spoonlicker, and what he does is pretty obvious he licks your spoons. Now, here's the thing about licking people's spoons for nutrition. That's not a very nutrient-rich diet. So, as you can imagine, because his primary source of nutrition is licking spoons, spoon licker is quite thin. However, not to be outdone, spoon licker is followed by our good friend Pot Scraper. What does Pot Scraper do? He scrapes your pots and then eats whatever residue is in there. Are you catching a pattern here? Now, of course, he can't have a simple to pronounce name. No, I'm struggling to read my own handwriting here. Potaskufel. Pot Scraper's arrival is, of course, followed by yet another licker, but this guy's not licking spoons. No, he's seen his brother Spoon Licker's physical frailty, and he's decided, no, I need more than a spoon. I'm gonna need the whole bowl. So as you can imagine, this guy's name is Bowl Licker. But it's not any bowl. It's a specific style of Icelandic bowl, so he's not something like Búlalikur. No, he's Askaslaker. What does Askaslaker sound like to you? Let me know in the comments. And he's not quite as much of a sneaky one as he is. He's the kind of predator that lays in wait. So the most unsettling thing about Bowl Licker is not the act of him licking your bowl. It's that he waits under your bed for you to put the bowl on your nightstand, then crawls out and steals it. So he's just vibing under your bed, waiting to lick your bowl. Iceland. Departing from the lads who like to take the dregs of your last meal, we're getting into the lads who are simply a problem. Door slammer. That's right. On the 18th of December, you will be visited by a small humanoid who just slams your doors, not for any purpose of getting sustenance or acquiring some sort of resource. No, he just wants to make sure that you do not sleep, and so he slams doors. And his name in Icelandic? Hurðascalar. However, we do have to quickly return to the food-based ones. And I need to tell you guys a little bit about Icelandic food. Americans likely would not recognize most of it, but they do have their own analog for yogurt. It's not quite the same thing as a Greek yogurt or a Turkish yogurt. It's served cold and it's, it's a strained yogurt. I don't totally understand what that means. And it's called skyr. And on 19th of December, skyr gobbler comes to gobble your skyr. Now, interestingly enough, the word skyr in Icelandic has the same root as the English word shear, as in to shear a sheep. All of it has to do with, I guess, the process of changing the texture of something. But the point is, if you're not careful, all of your skyr will be gobbled. I'm gonna be honest, guys, my handwriting is terrible and I have absolutely no idea what I wrote for his name, so I'm sorry. But let's, Aiden, just put it here. It's like skiergauder or something like that. I just can't read my own handwriting. But if you thought that losing your skier was a problem, allow me to introduce you to the man who shows up on the 20th, Sausage Swiper. He waits in the rafters as you smoke your sausage. And then when you step away from your sausage for even a moment, he snatches it, devours your sausage. Of course, while Sausage Swiper is swiping your sausage, the next day, the 21st, we get yet another friend, Window Peeper. Have you noticed that they're getting worse? Because I have. Window Peeper is kind of like a window shopper with a shoplifting problem, except the shop is your house, and he's gonna steal from you. And of all of them, he has my favorite name. You ready for this, Aiden? Glugagegir. Glugagegir. Almost as good as Gunungagap, which is another Nordic thing. Oh, it's the space between the primordial realms of fire and ice. But not only is Window Peeper looking for articles of clothing or valuables to steal, most importantly, Window Peeper might catch you in your underwear, and that would be embarrassing for you, now wouldn't it? On the 22nd day of December, we get Doorway Sniffer, who has a very large nose and sniffs under your doorway looking for your leaf bread, or as the Icelandic people call it, laufabrauð, which is like a thin fried cake, similar to a pitzel, if you're Italian. Now, of course, they stay for a while, so he's here to sniff your doorways from the 23rd, or the 22nd all the way through the 4th. And his name in Icelandic, Geita Thorfur. I'm guessing that the Icelandic word for door is Geita, which would make sense, considering the word gate exists. As time goes on and we approach the day of Christmas itself, we get into some of the more aggressive of the lads. In this case, Meat Hook, who has a hook and wants your meat. There's not much else to say there. I guess he's he and Sausage Swiper probably compare notes. And as you would imagine, somebody whose name is Meat Hook in English has a name like Kettkroker in Icelandic. I cannot wait to never have to say any of these words again. And on the final day, the day of Christmas Eve, the day when you just want to hang out with your family, relax, have some food, drink some eggnog, you're gonna have to do it in the dark because of Candle Stealer. Or Kertasníkar, as they call him in Icelandic. Now, Candle Stealer likes to follow children around, not for any nefarious purposes regarding the children themselves. He's not going to eat your kids. He just wants to steal their candles, because back in the olden days, candles were made out of beef tallow, which made them edible, kind of. So I cannot imagine choosing to eat a stick of beef tallow, but when you're one of the Yule lads, I guess that's just your vibe. So this Christmas, as you hang out with family and friends and eat good food and drink good drinks, open up some presents, or if you're not a person who celebrates Christmas, I don't know particularly what you do on this time of year. Happy holidays, I suppose. But just be glad that you're not in Iceland, where you would be tormented for nearly a month by diminutive, this is like obfuscate all over for me, diminutive, small dudes who like to steal your stuff and take your meat and whatnot. I'm Aiden Mattis, and if you like what we're doing here at the Lore Lodge, subscribe to us on Patreon for $1 a month, where you can hear me talk about this while I'm drunk. So imagine how that goes. You can also support us by checking out our coffee. It comes from Tableau Roasting Company. I designed the roast profile myself. This is not just another drop shipping kind of deal where we picked out a light, medium, or dark roast, slapped our label on it, and called it ours. No, I am a trained barista. My family has been doing coffee for years, and it is delicious. Is it delicious, Aiden?
Oh, it's so good. I can't wait for the new bags to come in.
We just ordered a lot of bags. So if you like what we're doing here, those are the best ways you can support us. You can also check out our Amazon storefront, our aidenmattis.card.co link in the description. And of course, you can always leave a super thanks or something like that. I guess that's a thing YouTube does now, or become a member of this channel. Thank you so much. Merry Christmas, happy holidays. I'm Aiden Mattis, and thanks for stopping by the Lore Lodge.